I'm George Galloway, Member of Parliament, anti-war leader, and this broadcast is being made by Malacca Media. But you could feed back at me on what I've got to say on Twitter at George Galloway, on Facebook. The page is called George Galloway MP. I've just come back from Tunisia. I was only there a couple of days, so I can't claim to have seen everything or everybody. But I saw and heard and learned enough to know that Tunisia is the flower of the Arab Revolution, the only flower that has grown and is still growing in the Arab Spring. The credit for that goes to a lot of people. First of all, it goes to the Tunisian people as a whole who conducted their revolution with exemplary discipline and determination. It also goes to the political leadership of that revolution. I was for many years here in London a comrade of Sheikh Rashid Ghannouchi, who was an exile here and who had no reason to imagine that he would ever go home. But he patiently developed an ideological stance here in Britain and a strategic sense of the need for people like him to unify broad forces in their country in order to bring about a transformation from dictatorship to democracy. I'm very proud of my friendship with Sheikh Rashid Ghannouchi. He, when he returned, led his party, Ennahda, to a very substantial electoral victory. But they gave up office when it became clear that things were rocky in the garden of the Tunisian revolution, and that in order to preserve unity and stability, a step back by him and Ennahda was necessary. And so I take my hat off to Sheikh Rashid Ghannouchi for the current situation in Tunisia, which is, just for those who don't know, a bustling revolutionary society where people can speak and assemble freely, where a proliferation of newspapers, radio stations, television stations are literally the expression of Chairman Mao Zedong's famous phrase that a revolution is one in which 1,000 flowers must grow, and that 1,000 schools of thought must contend. It wasn't entirely lived up to in revolutionary China, but so far at least it is being lived up to in Tunisia. There is a political space there, a civic society there, a freedom there that doesn't exist anywhere else in the Arab world, with the possible exception of Lebanon, which is, as always, a bit of a special case. But I'm not here to talk about Lebanon. I'm here to talk about Tunisia. There are other political forces, of course, who have played their role. The interim president, Marzouki, who is currently one of the last two candidates running to be the elected president of the Republic, also must take a lot of the credit. He has helped to create this island of stability whilst still going through a revolutionary process in Tunisia. And Sebsi, the one who leads the coalition, which includes people on the left, people amongst nationalist schools of thought, and, I'm sorry to say, people from the old regime, the old dictatorship of Ben Ali, the president who was overthrown in the first of the Arab revolutions. Sebsi won the elections, not by a vast amount, but clearly he leads the leading party in the state, in the parliament. He could have, if he was like some other Arab leaders, he could have said that he was going to rule alone. But he has learned from Sheikh Rashid Ghannouchi that leading alone, unless you have absolutely enormous hegemonic support in a country, is not going to work. So he has declared that he is ready to work with the opposition and include them in the politics of the state. I have never met Marzouki or Sibsi. I have no personal axe to grind against any of them or any particular preference for either of them. Though I must say that Marzouki's views on many things, including Syria, are not my own. But nonetheless, I'm hoping that Marzouki wins the presidential runoff, which is taking place in just a couple of weeks' time. I'm hoping that he will win because I think that he more authentically represents the revolutionary spirit of the people of Tunisia. I think that Sibsi, a figure from the old regime, from the old dictatorship, is not really the man who can best lead Tunisia into the post-revolutionary future. There are too many dangers in, as we've seen in Egypt, an old regime coming back. In Egypt, we have the frankly absurd situation since my last broadcast that the old dictator Mubarak has been cleared of all charges, whilst the actual president of Egypt, President Morsi, is on trial for his life and being held in dark and dank conditions. I'm not comparing Sibsi with the new regime in Egypt. I've already said I think that Sibsi has displayed a deftness and a sophistication in his political approach that's quite different from that which exists elsewhere in the Arab world. Nonetheless, I think that a figure from the old regime of Ben Ali cannot possibly be the best of the two candidates running in this election. Neither of these two candidates, of course, is an Islamist. Neither of them are supporters of Sheikh Rashid Ghannouchi. So this is not about an Islamist versus a secularist. They are both secularists. They are both people who accept the verdict of the Tunisian people and their revolution. So I'm aiming this broadcast at the many people in Tunisia, by the grace of God, who listen to me. Tunisia is the second biggest country in the whole world amongst my followers of almost 1 million people on social media. Tunis is, after London, the second biggest city of my followers on social media. And I'm aiming this message at them. I'm aiming it at men of the left like me. I'm aiming it of supporters of the idea of Arab national unity like myself. And to them I say that Marzouki has to be the better of the two candidates. Neither of them is bad, neither of them is overwhelmingly good, but you have a choice between candidate A and candidate B. And I'm here to say to you that if, like me, you are a progressive in politics, if, like me, you are a leftist in politics, if, like me, you support the idea of Arab nationalism, then the man best able to lead Tunisia in a way which will preserve the space not just for those schools of thought, but respect the other schools of thought, all of whom must be allowed to contend if the goals of the Tunisian revolution are to be maintained. You should vote for Marzouki. So if there's anybody in Tunisia in want of my advice is clear, that though neither of these candidates would be any kind of disaster for Tunisia, Marzouki is definitely the better of the two candidates. So in the runoff for the Tunisian presidency, if you listen to me, you'll vote for Marzouki. Wassalamu alaikum.